Welcome everybody at this FT Masterclass in Strategic Innovation. You have enough information about Rene in his booklet, so I don't necessarily want to go through his bio. I would just like to kind of mention one interesting aspect. Rene and I actually met a couple of months ago in Rotterdam at one of the events which we organized in a European project I'm coordinating. And what was very attractive for me is actually his title, and that's actually that in the title there was both words like strategy and innovation, and that's exactly the topic of this FT Masterclass. So the messages we would like to send, of course, is that innovation is kind of strategically important, and actually the second one, that innovation is not necessarily the same as R&D, because these are usually the assumption that innovation equals R&D, and it's actually much more. And I'm sure that actually Rene will confirm this and give a little bit of examples how Shell actually manage the innovation processes. The floor is yours.
In your language, Crystal, Huala.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So hopefully I'm mic'd up properly. I'm stereo. That doesn't happen very often. One more mic and I feel like a celebrity. But welcome everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. I've had an excellent day today already. We did a sort of a simulation game around food, energy, and water this morning with the MBA students. And to be, I can say, back here is always special for me. I have a special connect with the UK in a way, both from a company perspective. As you probably know, Shell is a UK company, PLC. But also personally, I spent 5 years in the UK. I actually have an MBA. It's not from Leeds, unfortunately, but it's from Harry Dwot. And my youngest son was born in the UK. So really pleased to be here. What I would like to do today is take you through a presentation around innovation, as Christo was saying. I really start to zoom out. I really like to start at the macro level and show a little bit what the challenges are around the energy and energy supply. And then zoom a little bit in on how we try to overcome or help overcoming some of those challenges with the use of innovation. So in this case, it's around IT innovation, but in principle, it's quite generic, and that's because the unit where I work in is really focusing on the use of IT solutions as a source of competitive advantage. I'll say a little bit about the organizational aspects of that. So how are we organized? What sort of skills do we require? I'll show you a couple of examples. One is with a nice video. And then there's also a nice video from one of my colleagues who tells a little bit about what different sort of innovation processes we are using. And then at the end we have time for Q&A, and then we can really open it up and see how can we some of the learnings that I have, how can we apply them to your specific situation where you're studying or where you have you're part of a company. That's fine. So hopefully let's make that an open discussion. So the first slide is not the best slide, I promise, but I know you guys can all read very fast, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So it basically says, don't buy any shares on the back of this presentation. So we'll quickly skip that. Will be more words than that. But so if we look ahead a little bit and cast our minds to 2050, and some may say, well, that is really far out, but for Shell it's very relevant. In 2050, we expect the world population to go up from about just under 7 billion people today to about 9 billion people, as you can see. Energy demand in that time we expect will double, and that's not just a Shell expectation. There's actually people that studied, researchers like the IEA predict that too, and that's already taking into account the energy conservation measures that we will be implementing. It's really caused by this growth in population, but also by the growth in wealth in developing countries. You see a move of people in general to the cities. So 75% of people we expect will live in cities, and the number of vehicles on the road we expect will go up from about sort of 900 million today to about 2 billion at that point in time. So this is just to outline a little bit of the type of challenges that we see at that time. And it's actually interesting to know that out of those that energy that we need to provide, so the source of energy, hydrocarbons will still play an important role. No matter how much we invest, and we'll need to invest in renewable energy, hydrocarbons will be an important part of that energy mix. So that really causes some challenges for the energy industry. So the first of all, the time of easy hydrocarbons, in a way we say, is over. So it becomes more and more complex to produce oil and gas, and that's basically because, let's say, the geology, the reservoir setting becomes more and more difficult. It's also because we go to more difficult locations in a way. And one example could be we're drilling offshore in deeper and deeper water, and Shell is one of the leaders in deep water drilling, and of course that poses technological challenges. The second thing is that we see sort of increasingly environmental and safety concerns, and it's very important that we keep our higher standards in that area. And then what we also see is that there are strong competitive pressures. And why is that? You can say, oil and gas is down there, it's easy to produce. It's not necessarily all that easy. But also what you see is that there are a number of national oil company or host governments that have quite exclusive access to these hydrocarbons. And whilst maybe if you look 20 years ago, they didn't have the financial strength, the skills or the technology to produce those hydrocarbons themselves. Nowadays, more and more, they're financially very strong. Oil price is very high. They educate their people. They have access to technology. So we are really not only competing with other major oil companies and independents. We also need to make sure that we add value for those host governments, and otherwise we won't have access to those hydrocarbons. And then more closer to my current role, as we see an explosion of data in a way. So the data volumes are going up, but to make sense out of the data, so turn that data into information and that information into decisions that make sense is quite a challenge. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So just one or two slides a little bit about Shell, I think known to most people, but I think the dimensions are still pretty relevant to us. So we're a big company. The revenue in 2012 was $467 billion. That's quite a large number. We're actually not so much focusing on that, but it made us the largest company by revenue, pronounced by Fortune at least. We serve 10 million customers every day. I think that's very important, mainly at our retail station, and that also provides a lot of information, of course, a lot of interaction with customers. Another, I think, relevant number here today is the amount of money we spent on R&D. So we spent about last year about $1.3 billion. That you can one hand that is a very sizable number. It's definitely the largest investment in R&D in our industry. Compared to some other industries, it's actually not such a huge number. And I'll come back to how we can leverage our relationship with the industry and with academia to benefit from other investments in R&D. And then a couple more facts. So the International Energy Agency expects that by 2030 we need to invest, as you can read for yourself, $26 trillion to meet energy demand. So that's already sooner than 2050. So that's a staggering number. And also, if you look at maybe a smaller number, but still, as far as I'm concerned, a very big number. Shell invests every year around $30 billion in new projects, capital projects. So that is building new plants, building new offshore facilities, new refineries. Year on year, $30 billion at this point in time. And you can see that if you can improve the efficiency of building those assets, that causes large efficiency and returns. And only if you look at acquiring seismic data, which helps us to make a picture of the subsurface, we spend about $1 billion on that every year, and it creates a large amount of data. I already mentioned that before, but the number he quotes is that by 2016 we expect that we have 450 petabyte of data. That's a large number. So what are we doing about that from a technology and an innovation perspective? We actually created in 2010 a unit which we call technical IT that is actually sits next to our functional IT organization. So that provides, let's say, PCs and communication and phones on one hand, and the other one sits next to our R&D organization. So it's a hybrid organization that is really, and I said it already in my introduction, is really focusing on how can we use IT as a source of competitive advantage. And it really goes across the full value chain, and I'll show you that in a second. So it's a little bit of an organizational aspect of how can you create value by using innovation. And as far as we know, we're the only company in the energy industry that is organized that way. So there's other people that mix skills, but not across the full value chain. And we believe that is really working well and create some solutions that are really paying off. So I was talking about the Shell value chain. It is a bit of a pictorial view of what the value chain is, and I won't go through the full detail, but it basically goes all the way from strategic seismic. You see that in the top right hand corner, to drilling wells, so some drilling of wells here in the front. You see some construction activities. I mentioned this $30 billion that we spent on building new facilities. There's an offshore floating LNG plant. There's some onshore refineries, and then we start to produce these facilities. You see that onshore. There's distribution. You see a nice Shell tanker driving there, and of course we sell our products at the retail stations. And I assume many of you will every now and then, and hopefully very frequently, buy your petrol at the Shell station. So that's a bit of an idea of what our value chain looks like. And in all these aspects, competitive IT plays an important role. So what I'll do, I'll zoom in a little bit on a couple of examples in that space. So the first one, and I already alluded to it, is what we call high performance computing. So the amount of data that we have, and it's mainly in the seismic arena. So this 450 petabytes in 2016. Requires an enormous amount of compute to make sense out of that. There's massive amounts of data, and the data is only growing. So that's we have thousands of servers in our data centers, and there's a publicly available benchmark that's where all national labs and institutions say, well, this is the capacity that we have, and in that benchmark we are in the top 5%. So many people don't realize, but as we normally say, there are many bytes in a barrel of oil. One example. Now that's currently where most of the high performance compute is used. But what we also see is a new trend towards what we say computational technology. So there are examples where we do, let's say, we try to model or measure chemical reactions, for example, in a wet lab, and sometimes these reactions take like 3 months. To come to a conclusion. So that is a long time. It can be pretty messy. You need to control it very carefully. Safety, of course, is very important. And what we're now able is actually to model those same chemical reactions by the use of very detailed compute models. And those are also very computational intense. And really provide a lot of advantage, because what normally takes them 3 months, you can now maybe do in a couple of hours. So you can see how IT can really change the business. And if you think about, let's say, building a gas to liquids plant, we have one built in Qatar. Let's say order of magnitude $20 billion is what a plant like that costs. It really is based on a process where you need a catalyst, and if you can improve the efficiency of the catalyst by 1%, for example, by using this computational modeling, that is that represents a lot of value for the company and the shareholders. So another example, and this is a piece of seismic visualized, is around seismic. I already told you that we're processing that seismic so we can make sense out of it, but in order to make sense of that, we need to do large-scale visualization, and so we built a tool which we call Geoscience, and it really enables our professional staff or geoscientists to better understand the subsurface. So you need to imagine that deep down there, typically a couple of kilometers in the subsurface is the reservoir, and it's not like a big cave as many people think, like it's a big cave and you put a straw in there and you suck it out. It's typically very complex geology. And what you in a way want to do is you want to make a high resolution, high definition picture of that subsurface, a couple of kilometers down there, or even better, a high definition video. You can see how that changes over time when you start to produce that. Now seismic is one of the measures, one of the means to do that, and this tool really helps there. And if you drill, let's say, a well offshore Gulf of Mexico to an exploration well, that easily costs you like $100 million. So if by using tools like this, you can more accurately predict where the reservoir is, you can avoid that you drill what we call a dry well and you throw away $100 million. So you see actually you can spend quite a bit of money and quite a bit of resources in coming up with those solutions. So that's another example, more in the subsurface space. So this is a very different example, and it's not so much about the technology itself, and this is what we call smart mobile worker. It's really how we equip our operators out in the field with tools so they can collaborate with each other and can get help from the central office. And you see some tools in terms of communication and sensors to measure. But the point here is not so much about the technology itself. The point is actually this is technology that is out there on the market. So it's not unique technology. It's definitely not developed specifically for Shell. But it's really the combination, the way you apply that technology that makes the difference. So integration of these different tools, and to talk in IT terms, the use case you make out of that. That really helps us helps the operator to be really safe out there in the asset, whether that's onshore or offshore, and that's really an important priority for Shell. So the next slide I'm going to show is a little video, so it's sort of self-explanatory, but it's another example of an existing technology that's not developed necessarily by Shell. It's used in other industries, but we're using it to be more efficient and to reduce the safety risk. So I'll first play part of it.
Shell Moerdijk is one of the Netherlands' largest chemical plants, situated in the southwest of Holland, on the banks of the Hollands Dieppe. The site extends over 250 hectares and produces 4.5 million tons of product per year. The site now accommodates various production units running complex processes that are used to manufacture base chemicals originating from petroleum. The feedstocks used to produce these products are flammable, and the production processes operate at high pressures and high temperatures. Isolated at one end of the plant are the 80-meter-high flare stacks. The flare stacks are structural steel chimneys used for burning off flammable gas released by pressure relief valves. The released gases are burned as they exit the flare stacks, producing flames and heat of variable intensity depending on the flow rate of the flammable material. Flare stacks require regular inspection and maintenance, particularly when sited in industrial areas and exposed to aggressive corrosive atmospheric conditions. For this purpose, the stacks normally have to be taken down, thereby shutting down production at the plant at great expense. To avoid the cost of taking down the stacks, Moerdijk has been assessing a new and innovative way of inspecting the flare stacks using unmanned aerial vehicles in the shape of a mini helicopter, which can fly at close proximity to the flare stacks and provide detailed inspection of the structure and flare tips. A British company, Cyberhawk Innovations, is one of the leading companies applying this technology and has already provided similar services to the oil and gas industry.
The aim of this innovation is to investigate whether a global service for inspecting our flare tips within Shell would add value to our process safety. And on top of that, we would like to identify other areas of interest for Shell as a broader company. The uniqueness of this project is actually the fact that we use the state-of-the-art technology as provided by our partner Cyberhawk. And secondly, the fact that we store the images centrally. We can reuse what we have learned. We can compare in a year from now the images and then see whether the condition of the flare stack has deteriorated. So I think that's the uniqueness of this project. Bring the learnings into Shell. We have used this technology now for 2 weeks in this proof of concept, and we learned a lot. We learned about aviation regulations, we learned about weather conditions, we learned about our conditions at the flare stack, and we learned about our risk management and work permit process. We would like to bring that together into a managerial end report, which we will discuss with our stakeholders in order to get next steps done.
I'll stop it there. And so it's not so much, again, about the technology, although it's very cool. I mean, it's very cool that you can use a little helicopter with a camera to inspect a flare stack. It has really very significant business benefits. You don't have to bring those flare stacks down. You don't have to so you don't lose production. You don't have to have people climbing into these flare stacks. But also, you can actually see more than what you can see when they're brought down. Because obviously, at the moment, in this video, they're still producing, so they're still hot. So you can actually, with a thermal camera, you can actually inspect the integrity of that flare stack. So it has additional functionality. But I think the point I was trying to make is more relevant in the context of what we are talking about today, is that this is an innovation. It's not necessarily about new technology. Those sort of services are used in other industries, but we brought them to this specific use in Shell. And also we're trying to create the contracts worldwide, so people can call off those services. Their safety aspects, how can you safely fly around a plant like this? Their regulations, so not in every country you can fly with these sort of drones. And so innovation is more than just the technology piece. It's sort of the integrated piece. And if you can use a piece of technology from another industry, that is actually only beneficial. I think this is the last example I wanted to use for today. And so it's really at the back end of our value chain is how we interact with our customers. And in this case, it's with retail customers mainly. So we have an app which we call the Motorist app. It runs on Android, it runs on iOS. So if you haven't downloaded it, try it. And it's really try to create value for people at the petrol pump. So you can store your loyalty points in there. You can schedule maintenance for your car, so you get a reminder when it needs to be maintained. You can find the Shell station and a couple of other functionalities. This is an example of a piece of technology that we're building to increase the loyalty of our customers. We have other examples. There, for example, there's a similar application on an iPad for investors, so they get the latest news. They can look at the results. And there's also an interesting application on the iPad that explains a little bit how the energy industry how that works. So these are examples of sort of innovations more using consumer type of devices, and I see a number of them around the table today. Okay, so far the examples I had. Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the $1.3 billion we spent on R&D in Shell, and this money is typically not spent on IT type of R&D, because we're not an IT company, we're an energy company, so it's really spent on fundamental R&D for Shell. But if you look at and again from an IT perspective, if you look at our top 10 suppliers, which we call our ecosystem. Together they spend about $35 billion on R&D. And if you look at let's say the full set of suppliers on IT, I think it's between my estimate is between $50 and $100 billion per year. So what we're trying to do is actually work with our ecosystem, not just with suppliers, but also with academia and universities like Leeds, and try to redirect some of that R&D money to work on the problems that are really important to us. So we go out there, we talk to them, say, these are some of the problems that we have. Is there some technology that can help us there, and can you focus on that? And that really helps. Also, obviously we have very clever people in Shell, but there are many big brains outside Shell, and we really want to bring together the best and the brightest to work on our problems. And in that way, we work with this is a subset of people we work with to create innovative solutions. So I also promised I would tell a little bit about the different innovation processes that we use, and rather than me keep on talking, I have a little video of a colleague of mine. He's the VP of Innovation in our R&D environment, and he will explain, let's say, the different sort of constructs we have to drive innovation.
The world is changing faster and faster, and disruptive energy is changing the way we work and we live and organize ourselves and communicate. And in addition, technology is becoming more complex, and the art is in integration of various pieces of technology. That goes beyond any single company, even one of our size. So we have to collaborate with others. others big and small. My name is Thijs Jurgens, Vice President for Innovation at Shell. In innovation, we develop new technology that helps Shell produce oil and gas cheaper, faster, cleaner, prepare better products for our customers. Our Open Innovation Toolkit has four key pillars. The first one is Game Changer, we have Shell TechWorks, we have Shell Technology Ventures, and we have our classic university and institute relationships. Game Changer looks for blue sky stuff, the very early stage of the technology development process. Can come from anybody. We help them with budgets, with financial support, limited financial support, and with expertise that we have in-house. And we help them with access to our assets if needed. Gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel, but it's difficult to store and transport. So therefore we liquefy it, and then the market is open. The liquefaction plant, so to make LNG, is a massive plant, it's a square kilometer or so. Now we're going to make a floating installation of that. That initial idea was nurtured in Game Changer. So they inventorized the issues and where the solutions could come to in the 1990s. So it's taken 15 years to mature thereafter. Shell TechWorks looks for technology from other industries that address problems that are similar to the challenges that we have. So with a little bit of adaptation, we hope to be able to apply that technology in our industry. So Shell TechWorks works at the very end of the technology development process, at the de-risked stage already. Visualizing the subsurface is very important for us. That's the reason why we shoot seismic. And the interpretation of the seismic is a massive task. One seismic survey comes with 10 terabytes of data. We work with the big players in the IT industry to crunch those, but we also want to visualize those as good as we can. And so wouldn't it be fantastic if we could learn from the gaming industry, from Hollywood, how we get every detail, every shade and color on the screen, even in 3D. Shell Technology Ventures is our new corporate venturing arm, so invests in and collaborates with entrepreneurs and startups, or small companies that are in the early stage of their technology development. GlassPoint is an American company. Shell Technology Ventures invests in them and partners with them. And GlassPoint is making a pilot plant in Oman for PDO, our joint venture partner there. They use sunlight instead of natural gas to generate steam, and with the steam they heat up the viscous crude underground so that it becomes easier, becomes lighter and flows easier towards the wellbore, and that way we increase the ultimate recovery of the field. As you can see, open innovation is very important for us. We're taking it very seriously. There is so much technology out there, good ideas out there that we can all benefit from. So these three pillars, Game Changer, Shell TechWorks and Shell Technology Ventures, together with the university relationships that we've had for decades, form a complete toolkit, a holistic approach for open innovation.
So I hope that was helpful. So it shows us the four different processes that we use to drive open innovation. And as you could see, there were some examples of very material, technologies or new businesses that opens up. So FLNG, floating LNG. So building, a massive LNG plant on offshore that opens up whole new gas fields, basically. And we're the first in the industry that can do that. And it came out of an idea. It took quite a number of years to develop it, but it came out of the idea of that innovation game changer process. Yeah. The other example Thijs mentioned around working together with the gaming industry, that's actually a project I'm working on personally. So we're using, let's say, technology that is redeveloped, in this case by NVIDIA, for making computer animations for films like for Disney and so on, and we're using that to visualize 3D seismic. The last example is an example of something we're doing together with the university. In this case, it's MIT, the media labs in MIT, and they had a very good visualization tool. Some of you may have seen it's quite a number of years ago, but the film Minority Report, when Tom Cruise interacts with a large screen, large amount of data. That technology was actually developed in MIT, and it's still commercially available, but it's very expensive, probably a couple of million for an installation. So what we're trying to do is create that same experience with a consumer device, in this case with an iPad. So the iPad has a little sensor, and what you can actually do, you can point the iPad at a sort of a virtual 3D point in space, and you can see that visualized point of 3D on your iPad. You can work with multiple iPads. You can walk around, and actually what you will see is if you look at that 3D model, the image will change. You can actually interact with two people with iPads. With the glove, you can pick something up, you can change it. So it's a completely new way of interacting with data. It's not operational yet, but it's one of these ideas that we're trying to mature. So an example of a collaboration that we do with the university, and the many other examples. So with that, when I come to the end of the presentation, so I've outlined the sort of challenges that the energy industry will find, and how they will shape the world that we're living in. How innovation in general and IT-led innovation specifically, how that will help finding solutions for these challenges, and how we work together, with people outside Shell to deliver those solutions and to maintain our competitive advantage and to become the most competitive and innovative energy company in the world. So that's really sort of what I want to show you in terms of the formal presentation.